Hello, I'm Peter Towers. Welcome to this special webinar on the Corporate Governance Network that is going to be presented by our associated business, ESS Small Business. This process is going to be delivered by 8 90 to 120-minute webinars over the 12-month period in 2018-19. The webinar workshops are targeted at company directors and officers of SME companies, and also committee members of not-for-profits, charities, sporting and social organisations. The participants in the webinar workshops will be encouraged to submit questions for discussion so that you can get some feedback on matters of concern. We've created a members-only area on the ESS Small Business website, and we'll be uploading to that space the agenda for each webinar presentation, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, the action plan template, which we will be encouraging each participant to complete after each webinar, a copy of any additional material that's been presented, especially by the keynote presenters. And at the end of the year, we will issue each registration a certificate of participation, which will be able to be used for presentation to professional organisations, if you wish, on the time that you have spent in improving your knowledge of directors' duties through corporate governance. We've got a number of guest presenters who are experts in marketing and sales, and debtors management and collections, people management, Fair Work Australia issues, workplace health and safety, budgets and cash flow forecasts, government grants, directorships from an SME company to chair of a listed public company. That's the journey that one of our presenters, Andrew Geddes, has undertaken, and company secretarial. So we have a wide range of presenters who have got real world experience in being actively involved with companies and organisations. So the key items that are going to be covered in the 8 webinar workshops include directors' role and responsibilities, appointment of directors and also committee members, procedures at board of directors or committee meetings, the very important responsibility of directors to appoint a CEO and then to monitor the CEO's performance. There are legal issues for companies and organisations, and we will comment on those. Fair Work Australia is very important for anyone who employs staff. Our keynote speaker, Jordan Lowry, will be talking to our audience on at least 4 occasions over the 12-month period, and we'll be talking about Fair Work Australia issues. And he will also be talking about workplace health and safety issues that affect everyone who employs staff, but also workplace health and safety also applies to visitors to your factory or workshop or office or shop. We will look at the various corporate structures that are available for both companies and for organisations. The corporate structures will look at the variations that occurred when a company is acting as trustee of a trust, how board of advice operates, how a mentor can assist a company to get all of its systems working appropriately. Liabilities of directors is a very important issue. Over the last few years, there's been new liabilities introduced for directors from the Australian Taxation Office relative to payment of PAYG tax and superannuation contributions. And there's obviously other potential liabilities for directors if they allow the company to trade whilst it was insolvent. Most of the participants will be from organisations that are employing staff, so the team overview is very important, starting right at the very beginning of making sure that the directors are satisfied with the hiring process, the employment process, the review process, staff trainings, development of the team. Portfolio allocations is very important. I think there's around 40 general portfolios in most organisations. And unfortunately, in many companies, most of those portfolios have been allocated either directly or indirectly to the chair or the CEO. I don't think that's good delegation. And we will go through a list of portfolios which I believe would apply to most businesses, and we will be encouraging the participants to have a good look at this and decide whether someone else in the organisation could be entrusted with that responsibility. They'll need some training, and they'll need to be informed of the company's expectation as to how they will report to senior management and to the board of directors on what has happened in that area. Risk management. Obviously, you could run a whole webinar series on risk management. There are a lot of risks in running any type of business. We will work our way through some of those over the period. One of the biggest ones is the Personal Property Securities Register, because failure to register on that government register could in fact lead to the business's downfall. We'll spend a little bit of time going through looking at that, because the whole purpose of this workshop webinar series is to make sure that the directors and officers and committee members and officers of not-for-profits and charities are alert to the risks that are involved in conducting the company or the organisation's operations. And once they're aware, the responsibility then on the directors and committee members is to make sure that someone has been given a direct responsibility to ensure that that risk is appropriately managed. I sense there might have been a bit of a sigh when I put that one up. Understanding financial accounts. Well, it's very important. You don't have to be able to prepare the financial accounts, but you need to be able to read and analyse them. And we're going to discuss some of this. Obviously, we haven't got time to go through every component. If enough people express an interest to undertake a separate more detailed evaluation of financial accounts, well, we will look to conducting such a series via webinar workshops later in the year. But at this stage, we will be looking at the overall principles, explaining some of the terminologies, looking at the various ratios, key performance indicators, and the format that profit and loss accounts, balance sheets, source and application of funds, etc. are prepared in, so that hopefully every one of our persons participating in the webinar workshops will have a far better understanding of how the financial accounts for their own organisation work. Key performance indicators and benchmarking. Benchmarking is where you compare your company or organisation to others. There are some benchmarking companies around, and we'll refer to benchmarking.com.au. You could benchmark with some other similar organisations if you wished, and some organisations through their national body do have the opportunity to conduct benchmarking. It's a great way to clearly understand how your business is performing against your peers in the marketplace. Budgeting. Budgets are very important to help a business plan where it's going, and we have an expert in budgets and cash flow forecasts who is going to be presenting. He is Mr. Paul Barnaby, a chartered accountant and the Australian representative for Plan Guru, one of the major budgeting and cash flow forecasting software companies in the world. It's a USA-based company. Cash flow forecasts basically run in parallel to budgets. You prepare the budget, then you prepare a cash flow forecast. And one of the things that young businesses need to be very mindful of is as you grow a business, especially if you're giving credit to your customers and therefore creating debtors accounts, or you're carrying large sums of stock and you're increasing the stock because your business is growing, or you have work in progress whereby you're undertaking internal work. In each of those cases, debtors, stock, and work in progress, you have got significant cash outlays that are occurring before the business receives payments from the customers, especially the ones that are trading with you on a credit basis. So the cash flow effect of all that needs to be understood, and Paul Barnaby will be taking you through that process in one of his 4 presentations. The market. What is the market for your company's products or services, or your organisation's services? Most markets will be in defined areas. What's going on in that market? How are business conditions? What's the unemployment rate? What's the building approvals percentage running at? What's happening? Is there proposed changes of main roads, railways? It's all very important for directors to have an understanding of the market conditions. And we have an expert in market and marketing in Trevor Marchant from Marchant Dallas, who will be referring to the market. Differentiation. This is looking at what is your unique competitive advantage. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on this in the webinar workshops. I'll be asking each of the participants to really think through the components of a unique competitive advantage. And obviously we will work our way through that so that this can be identified for your own particular company or organisation. What makes you different? And from there, we will be suggesting that you work on your own organisation's capability statement. What are you good at? What are you trying to do? How are you going to deliver that? Where can you take on work? All those types of things are embedded into the capability statement. Who are your customers? What do your customers think of you? Do you get feedback from your customers? How does this year's average purchase compared to last year's? What's the frequency of their visit to your firm? Could they be encouraged to make one extra trip to your business a year or buy some extra products? Could you marginally move up the markup percentage so that the gross profit percentage increases? And we will look at some of the exercises that you might be able to calculate in a trading business and also in a professional business and a trades type organisation. How can you fine-tune the figures to get a different result? Competitors. You'd be very unique company, business, or organisation if you do not have competitors. They might not be direct competitors, but if they are competing with you for a budget allocation from your targeted customer, client, patient, then they are competitors. And we'll be suggesting that you should be maintaining a file on your competitors and that you should be reviewing that at least every 3 months to try to determine what trend your competitors are on. Can you compete with them? Are you better leaving some components of the business to them and concentrating on other areas? It's an important consideration, your competitors. Grants. The main grants in Australia come from governments, the federal government and the various state and territory governments. But there are also grants from other organisations primarily targeted at charities and not-for-profits. So we will spend some time over the 12-month period looking at grants. We will start with government grants, primarily federal government grants, but we will work our way through the list. Capital raising for SMEs, a very important subject for companies. We already have early stage innovation companies. They are available for businesses that have developed new products, processes, services, marketing, or management methodologies, who have got income under $200,000 last year and expenditure under $1 million last year, who are not registered on a stock exchange and who would like to be able to have the classification of early stage innovation company so that they can talk to potential investors about investing in their company, acquiring shares. Now, there's a whole process to go through there, and we will give you an overview of that. And if you are interested, we'd be quite happy to talk to you about getting some further information. Crowdsource funding, equity raising, I think, is one of the most exciting concepts about to occur in Australia. We already have crowdsource funding, equity raising. It's been operational since around February this year. But at this stage, it's only available for private companies who have converted to become unlisted public companies. That hasn't proved that popular with the market, probably because even before that legislation started to operate, the Treasurer had already announced that he was going to bring amendments to the legislation to Parliament, which he subsequently has. And those amendments propose to enable private companies to be able to raise up to $5 million per annum from the public, as long as you go through an orderly process and engage with what is called a crowdsource funding intermediary, but more about that when we get to the webinar workshops. Companies can raise $5 million to undertake their business activities. I think there's going to be significant amount of interest in this concept once the new legislation is operational, probably from around February, March 2019. So it's an appropriate time for the company directors to start thinking about it. Section 708 of the Corporations Act has been with us for the last 30 years in Australia. And this section allows companies to raise up to $2 million from no more than 20 investors every 12 months. So their private companies can do that. It's a bit restricted. You can only raise the money from 20 investors, and private companies need to be very mindful that there is an upper limit to the number of shareholders they can have, and that's 50. That upper limit doesn't apply for the crowdsource funding equity raising companies for the component that is going to be called crowdsource funding shareholders. But it definitely applies to the Section 708 Corporations Act, but it's there, and many businesses are still using Section 708 to raise capital, so we will visit that as well. because directors need to be aware of these opportunities. So to register for the ESS Small Business Corporate Governance Network, please click onto the registration link, which we will find at www.esssmallbusiness.com.au. Click on to Corporate Governance Register, and then click on to subscribe. There are special packages available for more than one person from a company or organisation. The general registration fee is $499, including GST. That covers you for the 12 months. There is a monthly subscription which is paid each month for 12 months. And there are, as I've indicated earlier, discounts available for more than one person from an organisation. That's the overview of the Corporate Governance Network. I would invite you to click onto the website www.esssmallbusiness.com.au and then click on to Corporate Governance Network. Click on to learn more so you can go through and look at the profiles of the keynote speakers, the videos that they've all prepared so you can get an understanding of who they are and what their experience is. And then you can look at the program in detail. There's a very detailed list of what we are going to cover in these 8 webinar workshops. If you have any questions on any aspect of what we're proposing to do, please send me an email, peter@ESSBizTools, BIZTOOLS.com.au, or telephone me on 1-800-232-088. Thanks for listening to this webinar. Have a great day. Goodbye.